Today. And welcome. It is October the 30th, one day before All Hallows Eve in 2020, although the whole year has been pretty ooky, spooky, and kooky as it is, but it is Friday. And so the reason why we gather today is for a pretty good one. Today's edition of Bubble Friday. And for Bubble Friday, it's a day where we do it on Friday because it's usually the traditional end of your work week. So there you go. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne, and we blow bubbles on a Friday, or basically take time to exhale, if you will, to show that we've survived the work week. And most of us dealing with pretty awful and horrible and stressful times these days. This is one way that I've found that's extremely economical. Go to Walmart, buy, you get it's like 20 things of bubbles for seeming like $5. And just when you get some spare time, do something childlike, do something fun, do something simple, and blow away the stress of the week. Now, if you want to intake of bubbles, more of the alcoholic kind throughout the end of the week to celebrate, just be safe, be 21, be responsible, and don't drink and drive. It's all good. You want to blow smoke of some sort of kind? Well, if you're in a place where that is legal, more power to you. If you're not, yeah, that's all on you. So Bubble Friday, we are blowing out the stressors and the strife and all the issues of the week to hopefully get some time to enjoy it down time for a weekend. Now, if you're like me and you work 7 days a week, that's all sort of relative, but it's all comes down the same. So hopefully you will find some time to enjoy yourself towards the end of your week on this Friday and towards the weekend. If it's not traditional weekend, you're not quite there yet, find the time whenever you can to enjoy the bubbles, the air, and the life. Now, I do this, don't base it on the time I have to do this. It's Friday morning. It's 8 o'clock, 8-ish o'clock in the morning before I'm getting started on my big part of work week. The office technically opens at 8:30, but calls start coming around 7. So basically, hold away in my office, doing what I can, doing this thing to communicate, of course, remind you about the Bubble Friday part, and of course to just sort of speak out a little bit, have a little chance to commentate. One thing I've learned since I've started doing this in this fashion, doing this in this video mode, is despite the fact that I hate these lights and I hate that camera and I hate doing this way, it's essentially the future of communications, the future of talking to people is in little things like this. And I also hate my face too, but that's a whole another thing. From literally being afraid of looking into the camera since the 8th grade, now going on 30 odd years from there, it's something that in the last couple of months I've been able to kind of get used to, and get to sort of enjoy in some weird sense there. So thank you everybody for the support in stopping by and cheering me on, and some of the thumbs down. I was like, why are you rambling? Those things as well. I appreciate all that, all the love, all the hate. It all works out. It all does great stuff in the end. And yes, it is a little cumbersome because I'm doing all this stuff literally by myself, clicking buttons, doing all these things, overlays and whatnot, and trying to do it without my glasses, so I can't actually see what's going on. So that makes it a little bit more of a challenge, but thank you so much for listening. So the title in this week's Bubble Friday is "I'm So Glad We Had This Time Together." And for the bulk of you who actually watch this thing, you are old enough to remember the Carol Burnett show, which doesn't seem that long ago, but when you're in your middle 40s, it's a good chunk of time, to be honest. Now, that was the closing theme song, or I guess it's the theme song period. But at the end, Carol would sing a few lines of "I'm so glad we had this time together," and of course, pulling an ear, which is how she said "I love you" to her grandmother in every single show. Because and I use that statement because coming up in less than a week, I think 4 or 5 days, we will have the actual cutoff date for the election. Now, early voting's been going on for years in this nation, and for months, it seems like, in some cases, weeks, in some cases, it has been months since the latter part of September, in some cases, based on what's going on. And basically, anytime you want your absentee ballot, you could have gotten in the summer, mailed it in. I heard someone on the radio this morning reply to a commentator I listened to POTUS on Sirius XM, and all the commentators are talking back and forth about what's going on. And someone tweeted that early voting is no big deal. They knew who they were voting for after the November 4 years ago. They had a pretty good idea who they were voting for, although they didn't really state whether they were voting because they knew they liked Trump or they hated him so much they knew they were voting for the other guy regardless. So that was out there. But the voting here in the United States, I should say, is wrapping up on the 3rd. Maybe there are a lot of issues where mail-in ballots are coming in, so they'll take a little time to come in. They're going to take time to count them carefully. So a lot of issues in states where mail-in ballots are allowed to come in past the 3rd if they're postmarked, although there's flip-flopping on that based on whatever court ruling you're going to at the time, and we'll see how that works out. We don't expect civil unrest, but there's a lot of weird things going on, including Walmart taking guns and ammo off the shelves leading up to election, just in case there's civil unrest coming up after the election. We have no idea who's going to win. Margin of error makes it margin of errors about 5% in most polls make a 10-point swing, basically a toss-up. So we don't really know how this thing's going down. We have our suggested ideas. We have an idea of what people are saying. We also know people are liars when they talk to the press and these things as well. So we'll see how that goes. But we'll get to the voting part in a second. But if you remember, I'm so glad we had this time together, the song, the thought process, it's essentially taking time to thank people for being people and being around. In the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple assignments that dealt with showing gratitude, being nice to people, doing stuff like that. And assuming that the world doesn't blow up on November the 4th, although stranger things can be said to have happened so far this year, assuming that we do have the sun come up and we have these conversations or any sort of conversation and civilization past November 3rd, you still need to kind of think about the time you get to spend together with the people you spend it with. And this is both people you enjoy, also common, you don't miss somebody till they're gone. We shouldn't gather for more. We should gather for more happy things that are just at weddings and funerals, things like that. The family and friends that you want to see, you love to see, you try to see every week. Especially, every week is not a thing now with COVID-19, but you try to see often and keep up. There's that whole 100 friends theory where you can actually have a relationship more or less with about 100 people at a time. And while you may know 101 people, whoever is top of mind is the top of your relationship at the time, and it's just basically a ranking order. So somewhere down the line of all the people you may know them, but you're not actively in a relationship unless you're engaging with them. Facebook sort of throws that off a bit because you can engage by clicks and not having conversations. But there's that. But you should always try in time to cherish the time you get to spend together with the people you care about, or at least kind of like. Even if you don't really agree with everything that's going on, take a little time, just anytime. Like I said, funerals and your weddings should not be the only time you see and talk to family. Or reach out and talk to somebody who you hadn't talked to in a while, and just share a little love back and forth. And appreciate the time that you had to spend together in a closer time. Probably using a younger time, something that you find as you get older, it's hard to make new friends and hard to hang out because you've got your own house, that's a mortgage, and that's light bills, whatever. You're not just hanging out in apartments or hanging out in a dorm where you just kind of show up in somebody's room and sit and chill for a while. You can't just show up at somebody's house and just hang out because, they got family and pets and work to do and things like that, and side gigs to work on. You can't just plop yourself on somebody's couch and just say, I'm going to sit here and just watch some cartoons. Although people try to do that. That gets harder because it's literally hard and impossible to do. But as you lose track of some folks, just time and space, whatever. You begin to get nostalgic and cherish those things you had. As I said, Facebook throws a wrench into that one, or maybe possibly fixes it by allowing you to reach out to people you have no way of making contact with via the magic of the internet. So you have a mobile phone with enough data, or you have big, massive Wi-Fi service. You can, still keep in touch with people. It's like Christmas cards and whatnot, and Christmas letters. It just doesn't have to be all that exceptional, but you're there, and you should cherish that. You should love the fact that you get to watch people's children grow, even if you're not around there naturally, even if we're separated by the COVID-19, you can watch people's children grow inside of your social media as people are posting cute pics of things going on, first day and last day school pics, Halloween pics, all their baby pictures, things like that. You should be able to cherish the fact you get to watch people grow themselves as you see their status is changing from single to dating to engaged to married, sometimes to divorced, and sometimes to other things, and you get to see their progression. I know a person who I met via the magic of the internet, who, when I met her, she was a married entrepreneur. She's still an entrepreneur. She's a married, she basically life coach-ish type person, and more or less happy. And the marriage fell apart, and that happens. And she went on to basically be the main parent for her children who have gone off to college, and then they're doing great things there. She has launched a couple different businesses, including one that's pretty non-traditional for females to do, and is basically rocking the world in that one. And I've had a chance to watch one person grow and progress from this regular person who was pretty nice, doing well, to having to deal with some stuff, to bring herself out of it and going deeper and deeper and bigger and bolder and bolder, and get to see people doing that. Hopefully you've saw a lot of stuff in things I've done, although I've had, of course, last year with the when I was laid off, there was a whole lot of crazy going on with that, and then coming back up, what's going on, and I have not been as open and kind of vibrant as before, because I was playing the personality for the broadcasting stuff, which was most of the reason why I do this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. It's there. So hopefully you've seen me grow and learn and comment on that. Hope you like seeing JJ and her progression, watching Alex and, him going, from being 8 when I met him to being a pretty fine adult right now, watching Christina with a K and her amazing growth and transformation during our 16 years of marriage, especially through, I guess, the 2-ish years or so we went through her health scare of breast cancer, and now her 2 years of being cancer free, her 2 years on that end. A lot of people get a chance to join that. And I've met and enjoyed and loved and shared and been a chance to be part of the world with a lot of different people, a lot of different places that I don't have. Literally, I have no right or reason to be attached to, and the internet does done that. But it does not discount all the people you've met in real life, all the people you've gone through in all your real activities. If you've been through the military, there's plenty of guys from back in the day, back in boot camp, back in training, back in different bases that you bump into back and forth in each conversation. You appreciate the time you spent with that. Going back to college, all those people that you've enjoyed having time with, maybe fraternity brothers, sorority sisters, or group folks, whatever, people you've worked with that have moved on, or maybe you've moved on from there and you're still in the industry, or maybe not in the industry, and you enjoy time and conversation with what's going on. I'm so glad we've had this time together, and I'm pretty sure that we'll have this time next Friday. But just in case, I just want to make sure that you understand that I appreciate, love, respect each and every one of you. Now, you also have to appreciate the time you spend with people that you aren't so keen on, people you don't actually like, and assuming that they're not actively holding you back, when some of them are. If they put you in situations that are a little strange, put you in situations that are pretty off-putting, if you will. I mean, be honest. and you learn, grow, and survive, you have to appreciate that as well. You've got to appreciate the bad stuff that goes on to really understand how great the good stuff is and how good you have it. And the shows that I produced on the radio in the last couple of weeks had a really odd, well, doing live radio, there's always something that goes wrong. You may not know it from listening, or we do a lot of these things on Facebook now. We're watching it on Facebook as things go along, but there's always something that doesn't happen the way it should. One of the shows, we went to launch the intro at the beginning of the show, and all of the music pieces had disappeared from the radio, from the computer, period. I had no music pieces, no intro, no outro, no bumps, no nothing. And the show starts, they should magically appear, ready to go. They're not there. Reach the 5, because the show is not about music pieces and bumps and whatever. It's about the content that the host has and the conversation he has with the guest. So we just said, start talking. He started talking, and we went from there. Another show had an interesting thing where we had a full slate of guests that were scheduled to appear, and we had them all slated down. We're going to do call them by phone. And a unexpected guest literally showed up in person, and we didn't quite know what to do with this guest, other than the fact that they showed up and we needed to kind of put them on. So it was a mad dash to shift some people over, and people who should have had a full segment by themselves ended up sharing some segments with other folks, get everybody into the show. So we got all the pieces that were planned and a good piece of this unplanned piece in as well, which was actually a good thing. And it also showed the host that you can survive these crazy things, that just because you have the perfect plan in place doesn't mean something else is going to change that plan, and doesn't mean that something else doesn't make the plan, doesn't make the actual product better or worse, should say. I can't say this one made it necessarily better or worse. It basically was what it was, but it was a challenge, a struggle to make it work. But we made it work, and it showed how seamless you can do when things fall apart. Because in my world, especially on the broadcasting stuff, it's usually about chaos and things falling apart, as opposed to pre-planning. Pre-planning helps you deal with the chaos when the world falls apart. So I'm so glad we've had this time together, whether we are friendly or whether we're not friendly. And chances are, if we're not friendly, you're not watching this, but I still appreciate the time we've gotten together, because I'm here. I'm on this little video thing. I'm talking to you through the speakers or microphone and the camera I hate. And so that means I survived, or am surviving, whatever it is you have done to me or whatever it is you are doing to me right now. And that's the plus. If you're surviving, you're thriving, you have to find some way to appreciate the bad, the suck, the hard, as much as you appreciate the good. So I am glad to have the time to do this, although, like I said, it's the only time I have to do this. I'd love to have my office studio set up again with great lightings and better cameras and plenty of time and quiet and lots of swooshes and different things, but I can't. It is. So, and there's all sort of other weird things in my brain that makes it sometimes hard to get out of bed. But here I am. I'm presenting this thing. People are watching. People are commenting. People are liking, sharing, and doing all that stuff. So I know it's being heard. And so I have to be thankful for that. Whether I'd like to be heard to a larger audience, to a different audience, is beside the point. I'm so glad I have this time with you in my audience. I'm so glad that you took out the time to listen, watch, interact with me. So thank you for that. We appreciate that very, very much. I'm going to do one more quick little pluggy thing, and then we're going to talk about voting, because voting is basically, it's not wrapped up until all the votes are counted, but basically the voting process has been overstated. And if you don't know, there's an election coming up on November 3rd. You literally must have been in hibernation for quite some time. But check out jclevelandpain.net/podcast and look for Welcome to Your Monday. I don't think I have. Well, I've got to record some. I've run out of Welcome to Your Monday sessions, so I'll have to record some to go in for Monday. So I don't have one in the can. But most of these podcasts for Welcome to Monday, they run between 4 to 6 minutes mostly. They're a quick message. The message is literally short enough for Twitter, about 240 characters. And then there's that 4 to 6 minute sort of going deeper into a conversation into it. You can find it at jclevelandpain.net/podcast, or you can go to welcometoyourmonday.com. It's that simple. Welcometoyourmonday.com. I didn't prepare for that. I was actually thought I was going to promote a different sort of thing, but check out welcometoyourmonday.com. I intend, if all falls in line, when I record my larger podcast tomorrow, the weekly wrap up, the news wrap up. You can find that at the website at jclevelandpain.net/podcast as well. My intention is to write up a specific brand new message, more or less speaking to this for Monday, speaking towards the day after Tuesday, because these things are mostly written. I'll literally write them in batches, put them in a spreadsheet, and date them so I can see where they go. And so every time I crack open the mic, I've got 3 or 4 ready to go that are dated. And most of the times they're 8 months to a year out when I get to them. So it's part of the exercise is me going back into my mind and figuring out what was going through my head when I wrote this and why it was relevant then, and what makes it still relevant. Sometimes they get axed because they're no longer relevant. There's some little weird thought that popped in there. But check out jclevelandpain.net/podcast and look for any of the podcasts you like. But I'm specifically pushing for Welcome to Your Monday coming up this Monday. And you can find it if you don't do podcasts, if you don't have a podcatcher, you can go to welcometoyourmonday.com, and Monday morning, Monday morning, it'll get posted middle of the night, basically midnight, a few minutes after midnight Central Time. It'll go into your feed. If you have the podcast catcher, it'll go into your feed sometime whenever it pulls for a podcast. And I post it on their own Facebook and Twitter feeds at about 8:35, and I'll usually post it to my main feed at about 9 o'clock or so when it's out there. So check out welcometoyourmonday.com, and there's hundreds of them to go back through right now, but there's a brand new one coming this Monday, and if all works out well, I will have composed. Basically, I got to make sure that the actual message fits, but I'll compose something that's about appreciating the time you spend with folks, because you're not necessarily guaranteed specifically what, apparently Nostradamus was wrong, and 2012 was not the year that things were supposed to blow up, but 2020 was. There was like a math issue there. So we still got 2 months. We'll see what happens with that. So now specifically towards the voting thing, and I hate to call it the voting thing, but it is the voting thing. So I'll do this: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. 5 days away from the election day, or essentially the cutoff date for elections here in the United States. Yeah, the mail-in ballots makes it really, really weird. But in 5 days, we'll have a good idea, or at least starting towards a good idea, of who might be running the United States for the next 4 years. It may be Donald J. Trump. It may be Joe Biden. I forgot what Joe's middle name is. Joe may be his middle name, to be honest. But it may be Trump or Biden, backed up by Pence or Harris, backed up by a new look Senate, or more or less same look Senate. House is expected to basically stay as it is. And so we may have a new top of the regime, a new legislative branch going on, and we already have a new judicial branch, which may come into play. Who knows? We care. And those who can't say who cares, because we all should care, but who knows? So if you haven't gone out there to vote yet, most states don't have early voting on the Saturday before the election, and definitely not on the Monday before the election. So if you want to get out an early vote, check your state and check your district and see what's going on right now. You can get out there and stand in line definitely today in basically all states. And of course, on Tuesday, Polls usually open 7:30 to 7:30, something like that. So you're the 12 hours. So find out when your polls open, find out when the best time it is you get there. All your polls stations will be open, so it shouldn't be too bad of an issue. But basically, as we said, you've seen record turnout for early voting and a lot of people dealing with the extra lines and ever because people want to make sure their vote is heard. Get out there and find a time on Tuesday. Now, if you're holding your hand, an absentee ballot, a provisional ballot you may hold for some reason, a mailed-in ballot, and it's literally 5 days till election day, and most places are going to cut it off at the 3rd, and you're a little worried about it. Find out where your nearest drop-off point is, because you can always drop off your absentee ballots. They don't necessarily have to be mailed, and in fact, they like them to be dropped off in a location so they have them secured ahead of time. Find out where the nearest place to drop it off is and drop it off. Now, if you live in Texas and there's only one place per county, that's going to suck. But figure out how to make sure you can put it in the mail today. The post office will make sure it drops into the bucket at the courthouse on the 3rd. 5 days should be plenty of time for something to go up the street and down the way. But we've had so many weirdnesses things in the post offices even before the election madness. That you want to be sure. There are already people who are having their votes not basically being put to the side or possibly not be counted, be disenfranchised because of the climate we're in. There are still cases in some states where people have asked for mail-in ballots and they haven't got them months ago. There are places where people have mailed in their ballots months ago, and the process where you can verify that it's in isn't working or won't verify that they have their ballot in. So there's going to be a lot of votes cast, unfortunately, that aren't going to be counted. Just it is what it is. And if you're in one of those cases, you probably won't even know if you are. This is your reason to be diligent for the next election, to know as soon as possible when you can get in there. And if it's a issue where there is no true early voting, it's it's a non-presidential election, and there's not very many things going on the ballot, but some local things, you have to get in line, you have to stand and deal with the weather, whatever. You may need to deal with that. It is extremely important that your voice be heard. Too many people fought too many wars and conflicts and just general just back and forth to allow all the people who have the rights here in this nation to have have a voice. Now, as I say, and I will stick by it, your one vote does not change very much. If everybody in the room is picking pizza toppings and they can come to some consensus and you're the only person who wants pineapple on their pizzas, you will be laughed out of the room. So how does this work? You have to convince other people who have the same issues as you, who want the same sort of progress as you, who want the same outcome as you, to vote like you and to vote with you to go vote. That's how it works. Encourage someone you know that is registered to go vote. Don't ask them who they voted for. Don't ask them who they want to vote for. Ask them if they plan to vote, if they have voted, if they're in. If they're not in and they're on the fence, convince them, encourage them, get them to throw out their weight. Because yes, we do have situations where a handful of votes and sometimes a coin flip does determine an election in some smaller cases and in some grander cases as well. And yes, we've had cases where it's gone to the Supreme Court and all sorts of weirdness has happened. We expect that may happen this time as well. But you got to kind of vote with a mind going forward. All the people who've written in Ronald Reagan for this election, and a lot of them have, because they can't vote for Trump or Biden, are making their voice heard, but they also aren't contributing to the actual point of the process. That makes it even more important for those of us who have an opinion and can make a choice between the two. I'm not getting into which side you want to. There are actually pros and cons to any candidate in any case. And you have to listen to their pitch, their selling point, what they got have going on to realize whether there are pros and cons. There's a lot of things right now going on where there are a lot of famous black people who are giving their thumbs up to Donald Trump, and a lot of other famous black people are freaking the F out because of the situation. You have every right to vote for anybody you believe is going to do the best by you. You don't have the right to be paid off for a vote, but you do have the right to believe that the policies and the procedures that the person is going to put forth are good for you. Republicans tend to be good for business type people and people with money. Democrats seem to be good for general populist type folks, people without money. And so that's a generic branding to go with. But you got to go person by person. You got to know what they're saying. You got to look at the platform. You got to listen to them talk. You have to be in their presence sometimes. And you have to, weirdly enough, hear their heart, or the best part of the heart you can get to via political ads and Zoom conference calls. November 3rd. Another one of the big projects that I intend to get into that will take up way too much time and I'll never had to do very well is I wanted to do some sort of nonprofit that basically encourage people to get out there and vote on a nonpartisan basis. You know, offered up the opinions from both sides in local and national elections so you can see them side by side, and then just kind of push people to vote. What I'm going to basically turn that into, because that's not the real key issue. Voting is one thing. One thing I say, my wife said she thought it was funny, it was cool, was that you tossing in the vote out there. Even a vote for Ronald Reagan in the presidential election means you have a say in the process going forward. You went in and told folks, this is the guy I think that would be good for us to run stuff. And if you voted for a write-in candidate or a third-party candidate that doesn't have a chance, you're saying these other two guys have no ability to do anything for me. So this is the ideal person, or this is the joke person, or this is me saying I showed up, but showing I support neither. And I will live with the consequences. But trust me, I don't want either one. If you put in your vote, you put in your say, you put in your words on who you want to be in whatever election, from dog catcher to president, and the other guy wins, or gal in some cases, then you have every right to complain, to bitch, to get in people's faces when the other person is doing crazy things. If Trump wins, everyone who's been saying all the things about Trump and the things he's been doing in the past 4 years have the right, everybody, to keep continuing to complain about it, because if they went in and voted. If Biden wins and your world changes and he doesn't do things good for you, and you voted for Trump, you have every right to complain about it. If you don't make your voice heard, I don't care what you think. Maybe I'm going to say that. Your one vote will probably not sway much of anything. But if enough people who think like you, do like you, and need the same things as you gather together and vote, even in a losing effort, the fact that the numbers show what the people really think. You get a better representation of what's going on in a 55-45 election than you do in a 85-15 election. Because if 85% of the people are for something, either that 15% is extremely being held down and disenfranchised, or they're fringe people and don't really stand in line with the basics of what society's saying. But if you're 50-45, you've got a whole lot of people, not too many people who are not, or different. You have a lot of people who are more or less on an even playing field, who are basically on the other side of the coin. That means that issue is not a universal issue. 10 points, 55% make it an issue going one way, and on certain different circumstances, the world will be a whole different way. So if you think it's important, this is important. Figure out a way to stand in line and get it done on Tuesday, or Get it done. Stand in line today. Or get your absentee ballot into the mailbox or a drop-off box, or go to your governor and knock on his office door and say, dude, here's my ballot. Get it in. We'll talk more about who I voted for, assuming we have a world next Friday. But if you think of an issue is important to you, if you're a one issue voter and that's how you go, do it. If you're more nuanced, do it. If you're conflicted, do it. If you're undecided at this point in time, you're waiting for a meteor to come at us and to see whether President Trump actually does have a missile defense system to blow it out of the sky and save us. I don't have much to say to that one, but we're kind of out of October and basically out of surprises. Figure it out, get out there and vote. So that's all I have for today. Today went even longer than normal, 35 minutes. Thank you so much for stopping by. Like I say, the program I'm using to do this goes to multiple platforms, so I can't see all the respondents for people coming live. And be honest, most people are working, so they they're watching. Have time to chime in. Georgia Morris, thank you so much for joining again. Georgia is retired, and Georgia will do anything she can to do to help you help your kids do chess stuff. So if you want to know about chess, reach out to Georgia Morris. If I'm not sure, I'll actually ask her later and see if we are taking in any kids for our chess club. It's a little hard to do because it's virtual, so basically all the kids that are already in are doing on a virtual level. But we had some people who have dropped off because of weird COVID commitments. So if you have a child who's elementary school age, I think some may be middle school age at some point, maybe aging out of the chess club, and they need something to do, something good to do, something good to learn, and a little bit of spiritual in a sense, because it is, sponsored by a church. So there you go. We're going to have information from Georgia Morris going out real soon. So thank you so much, Georgia, for stopping in. And yes, we are still accepting kids. So reach out to me, or I'll try to find ways to put things out there so you can get to Georgia. It's a little weird doing virtual chess, virtual learning, but your kids are doing it somehow. They're somehow surviving. I'm wondering if they're actually learning anything watching my kid, but they're surviving, and we'll make it work out. I'm so glad we had this time together on this Bubble Friday. I'm pretty sure we'll have another Bubble Friday next week. I don't think anybody's setting the world on fire next Wednesday. I don't think they're setting the world on fire. But, I've been wrong about a few things in my life. And so you never really know. So pull out your bubbles. Do a couple bubbles. What do you call those? Just a couple blows. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you for putting up for me for 35 minutes or a lifetime. And all things considered, Lord willing, creek don't rise and nobody hits any of those buttons. We'll be back next Friday for another one of these things for Bubble Friday.